Welcome to Karma Ledger. Today's story is told from my point of view. Names, cities, and a few details are changed for privacy. I hit join on a Tuesday stand-up and watched the little black squares bloom into faces. I was half awake, hair not cooperating, wearing the same gray hoodie I'd been living in since our company went mostly remote. My boss, let's call him Brent, was already there. Brent liked to start meetings early, so you had to join early, which meant he got to watch everyone scramble. Control was his caffeine. I angled my laptop to hide the disaster that was our dining table. That's when I saw it, just a sliver in the reflection of the glass door behind me. Our hallway mirror. A figure crossed the frame in a navy suit I'd seen on billboards for downtown law firms. He wasn't me. A second later, my wife, Claire, leaned halfway into my office doorway, off camera for everyone else, but perfectly on camera for me. "See you at 11, she said in that breezy, intimate voice you use for people who know where your coffee mugs are. Then she caught sight of my screen and froze. Her mouth twitched into a practiced smile. "Oh, sorry," she murmured, and backed out. Brent cleared his throat through my earbuds. "We all good, Ian?" he said, using the upbeat tone he reserved for condescension. "Good," I said, and muted. I didn't blow up. I didn't stomp down the hallway. I stared at my own little square, at the man pretending to take notes while his stomach learned how to sink in new directions. The meeting ended. I sat there until the calendar reminder for one-on-one with Brent popped up like a dare. I joined right on time. "Performance has felt static," Brent said, with that slow, careful cadence HR books are written in. "We need you hungry again." Hungry. I could still hear Claire in the doorway. "See you at 11. "Noted," I said. "Can we keep everything we discussed today in writing? Happy to confirm via email." Brent smiled. "Of course." That was the moment I stopped being the guy who waited to be treated fairly and started being the guy who made fairness non-optional. I'm a project manager. I build Gantt charts for breakfast. Taking apart a pattern and putting it back together is the only thing I'm really good at. So I did what I do. Step 1, breathe. Step 2, write it down. I sent Brent a summary of our one-on-one, bullet points, dates, targets, confirming we discussed Q3 delivery timelines, and that you're comfortable with me requesting a second technical reviewer on the Atlas rollout. Normal. Boring. On paper. Then I created another document. Not normal. Not boring. Title, If I'm Not Crazy. Every time I saw, heard, or felt something that made my brain spark, I logged it. Time, place, exactly what happened. Exactly what was said. I didn't snoop. No hacking. No phone searches. I stayed on my side of legal and ethical lines and let the world produce its own receipts. Claire started going to Pilates at a studio across town. Fine. She hates Pilates. She also started getting home at 11:30 p.m. on Pilates nights and showering the second she walked in, which she never did before. Fine. People can change routines. Then I found a valet stub in the pocket of the coat she never wears to Pilates. Fine. Coincidences exist, except coincidences usually don't book the same hotel twice on different days with the same corporate rate. I learned the front desk would not, in fact, tell me anything. Good. They shouldn't. I didn't need them to. Because my boss, Brent, posted a selfie from the hotel bar to his private Instagram, crushing Q2. And the framed abstract behind him matched the hotel's photo gallery online. Same bar, same night as Claire's Pilates. I took a picture of my screen and dropped it into my doc. Timestamp. URL. That was all. The next day, Claire and I made small talk like two people on a first date they both wanted to end. "How's Brent?" she asked, too casually. "He's been better," I said. she said, like she didn't know him at all. Brent scheduled my mid-year review. He also accidentally forgot to invite the second reviewer I'd asked for. He also slid 3 deliverables forward by 2 weeks, with no added resources. Pressure is a tool. He was applying it. I replied to each change with cheerful confirmations. Just so I'm aligned, we're moving milestone B from the 28th to the 14th without shifting dependencies? But I CC'd the shared performance alias that routes to HR for visibility. I wasn't accusing him of anything. I wasn't hinting at anything. I was building a trail of reasonableness. If someone later wanted to say I was underperforming, the paper would say otherwise. That night, Claire came home at 10:50 and stood in the doorway to my office, just like she had on Zoom. "Late," she said, like an apology. "There was a thing. Hope it was good," I said. She studied me, waiting for the old version of me to ask who, what, where. I didn't. The old version of me had been laid off. I set a calendar reminder for the next morning and used my lunch break to schedule a 15-minute clarifying chat with HR. Not to report misconduct, not to make anything explode. Hypothetical, I wrote in the meeting description. How should one proceed if one believes a direct manager may be in a relationship that presents a conflict of interest with their oversight of my compensation and work assignments? All neutral nouns, 0 adjectives. The HR generalist, a woman named Keisha, who had the patience of a saint and the memory of a court reporter, said, "We can't discuss others' private lives, but actual or perceived conflicts need to be disclosed. If you have reason to believe your manager is making decisions compromised by a relationship, document behaviors and root concerns to us in writing. We'll take it from there." "Even if that relationship isn't with me?" I asked. "Especially if it isn't with you," she said. I didn't sleep much that week. The world felt pixelated. It wasn't one big horror movie reveal. It was 100 tiny glitches that added up to truth. The following Tuesday, I joined Stand Up early again. Brent's tile was black. Then his audio connected. "Morning," he chirped, out of breath. A woman laughed in the background, muffled, and a hotel door clicked shut. He fumbled with his mute button and didn't find it as fast as he thought he did. I added one line to my doc. Stand Up, 8:59 a.m. Background female laughter, door latch. After Stand Up, my calendar pinged for 1-1 Brent. I clicked record, because our company's policy allows recording meetings with notice, and I provided notice in the chat. Recording for notes. Brent, upbeat as always, launched into how we need to be all in, no distractions, and optics matter. I asked him to repeat the updated deadlines. I asked who had requested the move. I asked if he believed I had the support to hit the dates. I kept my voice steady, and my questions boring. Halfway through, I asked one more. "For transparency," I said, "are you comfortable confirming that there aren't any relationships, romantic, familial, financial, that might create any perception of bias in your evaluation of my work?" Silence. Then, "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I value clarity," I said. And I like being able to say, HR heard me ask. He ended the meeting early. At home, Claire tried to be sunny again. She made pasta, the dish she always made when she needed my good mood to thaw the kitchen. We ate in our separate heads. After, she said, "I'm thinking of trying a different class, a morning one." "You hate mornings," I said. "I can change," she said, and smiled with only half her face. I booked 2 consults, one with an employment attorney and one with a family attorney. Both were free. Both started the same way. I'm not looking for a fight. I'm looking for a plan. The employment attorney explained constructive discharge, severance negotiations, retaliation patterns, and why you never threaten, you only document. The family attorney explained marital waste, how to copy the boring paperwork of your life before anyone notices, tax returns, account statements, insurance, the deed. She told me to get a new email account and a new bank account at a different bank. Not to hide money, she said. To have money that's yours if logins get messy. I did exactly that. No more, no less. 2 days later, HR emailed me asking to schedule time to discuss your concerns. I hadn't actually filed a complaint, but I'd left a breadcrumb trail from my calendar to theirs. Keisha and a second HR partner joined the call. They didn't ask me to prove anything. They asked me to describe behaviors. I did, only what I'd actually seen and heard. They said thank you, we'll follow process, and reminded me that retaliation is against policy. Retaliation arrived the next morning, wearing a friendly face. Brent DM'd, "Hey, quick schedule change. Can you jump on at 7 a.m. for a Europe call? Need you fresh." I wrote back, "Happy to. Can we put it on the calendar so I can plan around childcare?" We don't have kids. Brent knows that. I wanted the sentence, "plan around childcare," on the record. He put it on the calendar. At 7:01 a.m., he didn't show. At 7:12, he texted, "Running late start without me." At 7:19, HR joined our empty meeting, by mistake. I let the recording capture them reading the meeting title, then I ended it. At 10:02 a.m., I emailed, "Following up on AM Europe call appears to have been postponed. Please advise. CCHR alias, no adjectives." That evening, Claire stood in the doorway again. "Do you want to go to dinner Friday?" she asked. "Can't," I said. "I have a thing." "What thing?" "An appointment," I said. "With who?" "Someone who will remember what I say." She pretended not to understand. I pretended to believe her. HR moved faster than I thought they would. These processes usually take forever. But a week later, Brent's tile didn't appear in stand-up. Our director joined instead, voice sober. "Brent is on leave," he said. "Questions to HR." I stared at my desk and tried not to shake. At lunch, Claire texted, "Are you free at 6? We should talk." I replied, "Later." The old me would have asked, "What about?" The new me had a spine made of silence. I got a calendar invite titled, "Exit Options, HR." If you've never been through one, it's corporate for, "We would like this to end before lawyers get expensive." The package was generous. 3 months of pay, COBRA, a neutral reference, and an NDA written in the bland poetry of corporate risk no admissions, mutual non-disparagement. I negotiated for 6 months, my vesting date, and a letter that said, "Position eliminated due to reorganization, because you don't let your next job think you got chased out." They said yes to more than I expected. I said yes to leaving the day the letter arrived. That night, Claire finally said what she'd been staging for weeks. "I think we need space," she said, like she was gifting it to me. "I agree," I said. She blinked. She wasn't ready for agreement. "We can talk about logistics this weekend," I said. "I'll send you a plan." "What plan?" "The one where we untangle our lives without setting the house on fire," I said. She looked relieved and offended at the same time. "So, you don't want to discuss anything?" "If you mean explain," I said. "I'm not the audience." She didn't ask what I'd seen. She didn't confess. She didn't deny. The absence of all three said more than anyone could. I moved the boring Way-1 suitcase, a spare set of keys in a Ziploc, a storage unit for whatever I didn't want to see anymore. Claire stayed in the condo. I rented a short-term place with terrible lighting and a view of a brick wall. Peaceful. I kept my routine clean. Gym at 6, interviews at 9, documents at noon. I felt like a witness to my own life finally telling the truth under oath. Claire sent a long message on a Sunday. "We can fix this if you'll just meet me halfway. You've been distant for months. I felt invisible. Brent made me feel seen. I didn't respond, not because I wanted to punish her, because everything I needed to know was already in those 3 sentences. A week later, I filed for divorce. No fireworks, no angry captions. My lawyer sent hers a standard packet and a ledger of expenses flagged as marital waste hotel charges, work dinners at places with tasting menus, ride shares at 1:13 a.m. None of it would matter much in a no-fault state, but it would matter enough to create leverage where emotion usually lives. We offered a straightforward split that didn't make her sink. She countered with a number that assumed I was desperate. We negotiated like strangers do. 3 months in, HR kept their end of the deal. Brent didn't come back. Rumor said he'd resigned to pursue other opportunities. Another rumor said he'd pursued one opportunity too many. I didn't ask. I didn't gloat. I started a new job at a company that puts their policies where their mouths are. Claire asked to meet for closure. I said we could meet in a public place with our lawyers present. She declined. "That feels hostile," she texted. "It feels clear," I replied. She sent a photo 2 days later, us from 3 years ago at a street fair. She was on my shoulders, laughing. Caption: "We were good once," I typed. "We were honest once," and deleted it. Silence is sometimes the only sentence that doesn't make things worse. Weeks passed. That's when I set the part of the plan I'd been putting off. I packed a banker's box with the last of my papers from the condo, signed the final draft of the settlement, and scheduled a notary. We sat at opposite ends of a conference table that smelled like lemon cleaner and endings. Her lawyer slid the documents across the table. Claire didn't look at me while she signed. When it was my turn, I signed without shaking. The notary stamped. The lawyer nodded. It felt anticlimactic and precisely right. We walked out together, because life is rude like that. In the lobby, she finally turned. "Do you hate me?" she asked. "No," I said. "I believe you made choices." "I loved you," she said. "I believe you loved being loved," I said. She didn't argue. We stepped outside. She looked at the sky. "What happens now?" "Now you get to live with your truth," I said, "and I get to live with mine." She looked like she wanted to say something else. An apology. Another revision of the past. A rewrite that would make the story make sense. She didn't. She got into a rideshare and left. I took the long way home. By the river, a busker was playing a song I didn't recognize, and a kid was tossing bread to birds who didn't know they were supposed to be scared of people. Life had the audacity to keep being ordinary. I thought that would be the end of it. But endings are only obvious in books. A month later, a recruiter pinged me about a role at a firm I respect. We talked for an hour. At the end, he said, "We asked your references about you. One of them used to work with Brent. He said you're the most accountable project lead he's seen in 10 years. I laughed. It felt like breathing out a year of air. 3 months later, an email from HR at my old company landed in my inbox. "We wanted to thank you for your professionalism during a difficult process. If you need anything in the future, our door's open." I archived it with the rest of my receipts, not because I needed to use them, because closure sometimes looks like a folder you stop opening. Claire remarried in a whisper. Brent did not. I heard both facts the way you hear about earthquakes in cities you don't live in anymore. Real, but not relevant. When friends asked, I said, "We didn't work." And that was the truth without the footnotes. Some nights, when the apartment is quiet, I catch myself reaching for the old reflexes, over-explaining, over-apologizing, rehearsing the argument no one is making. I put my phone down. I go wash the dishes. I write a list. I remember the day I asked in a recorded meeting if there were any relationships that might create bias, and realized the only bias I'd been living under was the belief that tolerating disrespect is a form of love. It isn't. If you've made it this far and you value stories about quiet strategy instead of loud revenge, subscribe to Karma Ledger. It's free, it helps the channel grow, and it tells me to keep bringing you real, thoughtful narratives like this one. Thank you. I don't know who needs to hear this part, so I'll say it the way I wish someone had said it to me. You don't need an explosion to leave a burning house. Sometimes you build a door out of emails and calendar invites, and you walk through it while the people who lit the match argue about the smoke. That's what I did. I didn't scream. I didn't claw. I didn't make a scene at a hotel bar. I asked boring questions in recorded meetings. I sent polite follow-ups with timestamps. I spoke to professionals who knew the map. I put facts where feelings used to be, and when the weight of those facts was finally heavier than the story I'd been telling myself, I set the story down. My boss once said, "Hunger wins." He was right. I was hungry for respect, for clean lines, for the feeling of being able to say, I did this the right way, and have the paper agree. It's not cinematic. It's not even satisfying on the days you want thunder. But it is peace. And peace, I've learned, can be loud enough to build a new life on.